You know what I realize is that sometimes you have to laugh so that you don't cry. But as Donald Trump continues to name his cabinet, I don't know whether to laugh or to cry. I don't know whether to think like, wow, this Trump regime 2.0 is really taking shape, or say, are these people potentially worse than the first round of Trump administration picks? Like, could you find worse people? And the answer evidently is yes. Yes, we can. And, I will tell you, I believe that America is going to end up with buyer's remorse. But guess what? This store ain't taking any returns. Okay? We're taking this shit to full term as white supremacist Republican, pro-lifers are forcing us to. Welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show, dear friends. Cocktails, mocktails, if you got them, smoke them, because it's going to be a long, long, long undoing of American democracy. And it ain't going to be just 4 years. Okay? I just looked over into the chat, and I will put this up because bravo, girl. Yes, Matt Gaetz as AG makes me want to play in traffic. It just makes me want to stay or just move the bed into the middle of the road and fucking take my chances. Because that's the world that we are living in. Y'all, welcome to the Danielle Moodie Show. I keep vacillating, okay, between uh uncontrollable sobbing, which is where I found myself multiple times yesterday, when the fear of these people taking hold over our country and we have no recourse. Like the founding fathers, as racist and misogynist as they were, could not foresee this shit happening. Because I would like to believe that they would have put together some type of fucking guardrails in order to do that, that didn't just look like impeachment, right? But that looked like, oh, if you're a felon, you can't run for office. Oh, if you've been found guilty of rape, you can't run for office. If you are being investigated for anything, you can't hold a cabinet position or run for office. Like, I would have liked to believe that they would have had enough foresight, because, they conceived of this government for and by the people when one did not exist. They created this thing called democracy. But here is what they believed, that the people that would run for office, right, would actually be people who were patriotic, who cared about this country. They could not have foreseen that people would decide to run for the presidency as a get out of jail free card, right? Or run for the presidency as a way to enrich themselves or their families. They could not have foreseen that. But dear friends, that is where we are. And so yesterday, I found myself just at a loss. My girlfriend kept looking at me and she's like, what is wrong? Like, I know what's wrong, but like, what is wrong? And I said, I just keep getting like this wealth of like fear stuck in my throat about what is going to happen to Black people, to people of color, to trans people, to people with disabilities, to undocumented people, right? Like the list just kept rolling down. And I keep thinking to myself, the fear that I have, yes, I'm going to say this. I'm going to post what Holly said. It's breathtaking. It is breathtaking. And here's the funny thing that I will say before we run through who is a part of the new power regime in the world. Because mind you, friends, our elections have global implications. It isn't just about what happens to us. And it's funny because I will say this, America is one of the most fucking self-centered, right, countries that have to ever exist. But you see, when they're having elections over in France or they're having elections in the UK, we don't sit around with bated breath and watch what is unfolding in these different places. We sit on our high horse in America and we don't really give a fuck. We're like, oh, ooh, that seems to suck. And then we head off to Walmart or Target and go on about our days. However, when the United States has an election, everyone around the world is watching and waiting with bated breath because what happens in the United States sends ripple effects and shockwaves around the world. Which is why today's show I named The New Axis of Evil. And who is at the helm of this axis of evil? Elon Musk, Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin. I mean, folks, like, I could have never imagined. And I think that when we were in the Cold War, folks that are still alive today could never fucking imagine that America would be as aligned as it is with Russia right now than we are with any of our quote unquote allies. I mean, when you look at who Donald Trump has picked for his cabinet, let's just start. Let's just get into it. Because, I mean, for the love of fucking God, here we go. So, Matt Gaetz, right before I was getting ready to come on air, is named as Trump's pick for Attorney General. Matt fucking Gaetz. Matt, I fuck 17-year-olds Gaetz. Matt, who has been being investigated by the ethics committee in Congress, Gaetz. Matt, who either it was ProPublica or whomever did a rundown of the party that he took the 17-year-old girl to, who was naked, right? And they had drugs and alcohol and this, that, and the other thing. This is going to be the Attorney General of the United States of fucking America. You can't make this up. You cannot make this up. But what we know, right, is that first off, Matt Gaetz hates every fucking body, right? What we know is that he is a Donald Trump lackey, but he is also very quick to turn on any Republican, as evidenced by him getting, right, the other Fisher-Price Speaker of the House kicked out of his job in less than a year. So you cross Matt Gaetz and you're pretty much done for. Y'all, I tell you this so fucking much that, like, these people are getting ready to weaponize the entire United States infrastructure, our entire government, against the American people. This is not hyperbole. This is not me pulling shit out of thin air. This is me telling you what these people have said in their own capacities. Matt Gaetz in Congress talking about Democrats, enemy of the state, this, repugnant, this, that, and the other thing. He is going to have his former colleagues investigated. He is going to have his former colleagues caught up in a whole host of shit, because guess what? They did that to him, rightfully so, because he sleeps with teenagers, because he's a pedophile. But America voted for retribution. America voted, instead of a president that was going to head into the Oval Office with their to-do list, they decided that they wanted Donald Trump's who to fuck over list instead. You know, I just wish that the rest of us could carve ourselves out from the fuck around and find out era, because I didn't need to find out. I already fucking knew. Okay? But now we're caught up with everybody else. Oh, let's continue to run along this list, shall we? Okay. Up next, Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Y'all, I have never met a more kiss-ass human being than Marco Rubio. A man that I don't even like. I mean, just look at the state of Florida, in all honesty. Like, if your state is not in the top 10 of good things, like top 10 in education, top 10 in workforce development, top 10, you are unqualified. The state of Florida, right, should make you unqualified to run for any office, let alone be senator, let alone be named to be Secretary of State. Marco fucking Rubio. Lil Mark, yes. Because remember, Donald Trump, like, dragged this man for filth, took his masculinity from him and served it to him on a platter. And Marco said, "Please, sir, can I have some more?" Secretary of State. Oh, who do we have next? The puppy killer. The puppy killer, Kristi Noem. Puppy killer, Kristi Noem. She wanted to show the MAGA elite, if that is even a thing, how tough she was, right? So on top of getting her MAGA makeover, right? Because Kristi Noem, I should have done a before and after picture, because Kristi Noem didn't look like this, okay? I don't know where she went. Maybe Mar-a-Lago takes like appointments, because they all seem to come out of that factory looking exactly alike. But she got her eyelashes done. She got her fillers put in her face. She got her hair blown out. And then she wrote an entire autobiography about how, you know, when the puppy was acting out, she dug a grave and shot it in the head. Look at her, guns ablazes. She is going to be in charge of Homeland Security. Puppies beware. Who's up next? This is one of my favorites. Secretary of Defense. Because guess what? Until yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever he was announced, because we live inside of a time vortex, I had to realize as I was coming on air that today was Wednesday, because I had no fucking clue. Just like I didn't know who this man was, because guess what? I don't watch Fox and Friends. That's right. Our new Secretary of Defense is a man that was in the military, but his claim to fame is that he is a television host. He's a television host. He's a uber Trump supporter, but he's a talk show host. So what can I run for? What can I be nominated for? Right? Can somebody make up a position for me? I have more experience to be the Secretary of Defense than Pete Hegseth, right? Oh, by the way, he has 7 children because this is what these men love to do to show their masculinity, just popping out babies. I'm actually surprised that women are a part of this cabinet at all, right? Like to be honest, right? Like, are you all shocked that you're seeing women here? But you know what's funny? What's funny is that so far it's white as hell up in here. And I don't know, has anybody seen Byron McDonald's? Byron Donalds, whatever his name is, Tim Scott, any of the Black MAGA? I think that they're all waiting for their appointments because, they love Donald Trump. What did Tim Scott say on the stage? I love Donald Trump in his best, like, step and fetch it voice. So I wonder if Donald Trump will love him enough to make him, part of his cabinet. But you usually don't make mascots a part of the team. You know what I'm saying? They don't run the plays. You see what I did there? So folks, I just, you look at this and there's more, right? Because I have an entire list. I just only made a slides of some people that you may not know, but I swear to God, I mean, it, like, for the last 4 years under Biden, all I kept saying was, you know what? It's nice. It's nice to wake up and not wonder what fresh hell is going to be meeting us coming out of the White House. And now, while we have 67 days until Inauguration Day, 67 days to brace yourselves, to get yourselves together, right? With the list that I offered up yesterday of things to do, right? To potentially try your best to mitigate the tsunami of cruelty and harm that is coming our way. I'm at a loss because for the next 67 days, every single day, it's going to be Trump new pick this, new policy that, new video on who he's going after and what more reparations he can provide for white people and, who's going to be thrown into prison, X, Y, and Z. Y'all, it's it's wild. It's wild. All right, let's go to who we have next. Oh, wonderful. Department of Government Efficiency. Nothing spells efficiency than putting 2 people in charge of a 1-person made up commission. So Trump announced that the 2 men will lead what he's calling a new Department of Government Efficiency. It will not be a new federal agency, but will provide, quote, outside of government counsel on reforming departments and cutting waste. What do these 2 men know about cutting waste? What do these 2 men really know about anything? Both of them are very, very wealthy. One is the wealthiest, right? The other one, very wealthy. So 2 men in charge of a 1-person job. Let's just go back. Dodge, whatever the fuck this acronym is. But basically, folks, let's just understand what this really is. This is McCarthyism 2.0, right? Joe McCarthy, 1950s, the Red Scare, going through government agencies to purge them of who he believed to be communists, right? And people that were anti-government. They held investigations. They dragged people in front of committee hearings. And people were deported and purged from government. Folks lost pensions. They lost their careers. They lost their livelihoods. This is what this is. So there's nothing efficient about this. It is looking around and saying to yourself, oh, who is going to be the next scapegoat? What can we do here in order to provide more pain? And to remind you, Elon Musk said right out loud that America was in store for short-term hardship, right? But don't worry, that is only until we have, quote, long-term prosperity. He didn't define what short-term meant. He also didn't define what long-term meant. He's not going to have any effects whatsoever with his nearly $1 trillion fortune that he has off of the backs of the little people. But it's the rest of us, right? These are the people that are in charge. It is mind-blowing to me. Mind-blowing. But this is, this is how white supremacy works. Because, and I have to say, somebody said the other day that I need to stop using the term white supremacy and I need to start using white delusion because words have power. And supremacy actually means supreme. Do any of the people that I list out just now of who is walking into Donald Trump's cabinet, do any of them seem like they have supreme knowledge? Right? Seem like they have supreme intellect? No. What they did do was bring in the bottom of the barrel and say, because we can. Right? The rest of us, particularly Black people, particularly Black women, have to jump through how many different hoops? How many fucking different degrees? They had the audacity to say that the vice president of the United States slept her way to the top and had no resume whatsoever. The former attorney general of like the third largest economy in the world of California. The first female vice president of the United States. Senator from, again, the third largest economy. But she's quote unquote trash and doesn't have any expertise. But we're going to name a fucking talk show host as the Secretary of Defense, whose only qualification is what? Being a cis hetero white man that has pledged his loyalty to Donald Trump. Y'all, pray for us. Up next, the border czar. I played his video. Tom Homan, who is architect of the Project 2025. He is going to be the border czar. Again, they made up these names. That's what they called the vice president of the United States. But in the Trump world, they've now created this title. Sounds big and bad. And he has said that he is going to deport people and that blue state governors better not get in his way, because then he'll send double the amount of ICE agents and the military to back it up. And before folks say, that could never happen, miss me with the bullshit, because we all know that it can. And again, I'll refer you back to the laws that made it legal to create Japanese internment camps in World War II, the laws that made it legal to deport 1 million Mexicans from this country in 1953 to 1954. We talked about that yesterday, as it is called the most hideous name that I've ever heard, Operation Wetback. So what I realized, here's the point that blows me today. Here's what I've realized. Donald Trump isn't inventing anything new. He's not creating new policies. Donald Trump is resurrecting zombie policies that have been on our books that we thought that we had moved on from. We love to refer to that time where we interned 120,000 Japanese descendants who were largely American citizens, right, as a dark period, but they utilized the Espionage Act in order to do that, right? They called these people just because Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese before we would then drop an entire atomic bomb on them. That if you are a descendant of these people, even though you're an American citizen, you must be treasonous. Right? Even though we begged Mexican workers to come to this country in the 1950s and again do the jobs that other people weren't doing, when they decided to stay, we rounded those people up and disappeared nearly 1 million people. So what I realize is that Donald Trump, when he said, "Make America great again," he meant to Frankenstein and resurrect laws that were on the books. So whether it is from 1798, whether it's from the Comstock Act, right, which we went over yesterday, which made it illegal to utilize the mail to send lascivious and devious things like contraception and abortion equipment through the mail. We never rid ourselves of these laws. So what Donald Trump is doing, him and his cronies, they're sitting around and they're going, let's give ourselves a little bit of a history lesson. Excuse me. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a history lesson. Let's go through to the times when white men were at the top of the pyramid, which is where they still are. It's only the perception of diversity do we actually have. But folks, when you look at who the CEOs are of Fortune 500 companies, who's been leading the country, except for the 44th president of the United States. But it's the perception that they're losing power that has us in this place. But all Donald Trump is doing is resurrecting and putting together old laws. So that's where we are. You know, Make America Great Again is really about going back to America's history that we don't actually teach. And that's why it's such a shock to so many people. And that's why we always hear the refrain, this isn't who we are. Isn't it? Up next. Excuse me. Susie Wiles. Susie Wiles, another woman, will now be the first female chief of staff. So Donald Trump gets to make history by appointing a woman as his chief of staff, which we've never had in these United States. I wish this wasn't who we were. I really do. I wish that this was a nightmare. Like, I just had to pause myself for a second because I'm so outdone. And then finally, here's where we arrive. Alexandra Carabello is a reporter and put this out on Blue Sky. The plan is clear. Trump will forcibly adjourn Congress and recess appoint his entire cabinet. This has never been done before, and it's clearly a dictatorial move. We are in such uncharted waters. It'll be a massive purge along with shock and awe tactics. Section 2, Clause 3, appointments during recess of Senate. The president shall have the power to fill up all vacancies that may happen during the recess of the Senate by granting commissions which shall expire at the end of their next session. Here's the thing. I don't even know why he would need to do recess appointments, because they have the House, they have the Senate. The Senate is where all of these appointments will go through. They have the Senate. So what do they not? Maybe he just doesn't want the hearings. Maybe he just doesn't want, right? The public airing out of how incompetent and unqualified these people are. But does it actually matter? Does it matter at all? And so here we are. And I just want to, of the people that are not listed, if you all are paying attention at home, we have Republican Lee Zeldin, who is a climate change denier, as head of the EPA, Elise Stefanik, UN ambassador, Stephen Miller will be deputy chief of staff. He's like, evil incarnate. And the list will continue to populate itself. And somebody said something that was really funny, which was, well, at this rate, if you're going to name Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, well, my assumption will only be that Marjorie Taylor Greene will end up being the Secretary of Education. Nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, would shock me. Right? Oh, and you had Huckabee named as ambassador to Israel, right? I mean, and then RFK Jr. is going to be in charge of our food and our health. The man that doesn't believe in vaccinations, fluoride in water, and doesn't want you to have pasteurized milk. The goal is this. It's so clear to me. The goal is to turn American institutions that have been put in place to help the American people, turn them against the American people. Most importantly being our military. The strongest military in all the world turned against its own people. That is what this regime will do and plans to do. They plan to gut the Department of Education. They plan to gut the EPA. They plan to poison our environment, poison our food, poison our water. And then when we resist, when folks wake up and recognize that they've been lied to, led astray, bamboozled, and hoodwinked, when they thought that, they were just voting for the Black people to suffer or the trans people to suffer. But then all of a sudden, what they thought was going to be trickle-down prosperity ends up being trickle-down pain, and they resist. Donald Trump is going to turn the military on the American people. And he's going to do so by seizing cities, seizing blue states, one by one, and saying that, well, you're harboring enemies. He's going to use this mass deportation as the biggest ruse to take military control over the states that did not vote for him and then punish them one by one until those blue state governors and all of America bends the knee to the Trump regime. That's how it happens, folks. Dictators and authoritarians, they don't come in necessarily rolling down the street on tanks. They are largely elected democratically because people are yearning for change. And change is what they absolutely get. Because that's all you're going to be living on is some coins. Oh, look, y'all, I will say this as I close out today. We are in for it, and that is why the last week, have been vacillating between full-blown tears and meltdown because the fear just grips me, and then just the absurdity of the times that we are living in. Because half of America decided to sell out the other half for their love of white delusion, their hate of women, and their desire for $1.99 gas and 50-cent eggs, things that will never actually return and things that Donald Trump will never actually offer. But folks keep saying, well, we'll get them in midterms. That's if you think we're having midterm elections. I don't foresee that. I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. Trust me. I don't foresee midterm elections. I don't foresee an election in 2028. I believe that we are going to be living in dog years, where every year under Trump, much like it was from 2017, right, until January 2021, every year felt like it was 10 years in fucking one. So by the time that folks think that these midterm elections are going to roll around, folks will feel hopeless, broken, broke, and sick. Because that's the goal. Because you can't control people otherwise. You have to squeeze the hope out of them. You have to make them sick and desperate enough to turn on each other. Because if they were to actually link arms, then there would be more of them than the 1% that are at the top of the food chain. So if you create this hellscape, then you can run a racket. You can pick their pockets. You can do whatever you want, because people will turn around and say, I stood in line for 9 hours last time and nothing changed. So I'm not voting. And to boot, as I close out today, as it turns out, 7% of Democrats didn't vote in this election. I don't know what kind of messaging was needed. I don't know. What was missed? I have no idea. I'm not the finger pointing person. I think that the Harris-Walz team in 3 months did an extraordinary job. But 7% of Democrats didn't vote. And now we're here at the find out part of the fuck around. And what they have in store is cruelty that you can't even wrap your minds around. It is wild. It is wild. All right, my dear, dear friends. As I say at the end of each and every show, please do, if you are liking these episodes, if you're liking this show and this channel, please do actually like and subscribe and comment, help the algorithm and help this channel grow. I am trying to create an independent media space for us because, as I said yesterday, and as I'm certain that you all are seeing, cable news, MSNBC in particular, has lost half of its viewership. CNN has lost 30% of its viewership. People are tuning out, but hopefully they are finding voices that they can trust. And if that is you, then I please do ask that you, thank you so much, that you like, subscribe, and share. As well as, folks, I appreciate your donations so very much. I am an independent voice here, and your donations go a long way in allowing me to continue to do this work. It is how I'm able to do this work. So I appreciate every bit that you all send to me. It means the world. And, if you're ending your subscriptions at the New York Times, at the Washington Post, at the LA Times, and other places, if you're cutting the cable cord, consider spreading out what you would normally pay in those subscription fees on independent voices and independent media. Because like I say, I will be here for as long as it is safe and as long as it is legal. As always, my dear friends, power to the people, and to all the people power. Get woke, stay sane, and in these extraordinarily dangerous times, dear friends, please stay safe. I will be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern, and it is our call to action day. So there will be a call to action. What can be done? What can we all do? You'll find out tomorrow. Thank you to the moderators. Thank you to all of you who showed up today. Appreciate each and every single one of you. If you are watching me on Twitter, do follow me on Blue Sky, because at the end of this month, I am off of Elon Musk's platform. So do make sure that you follow me on Blue Sky and that you like and subscribe. See you tomorrow. Be well, friends. We'll get through somehow, some way.